For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 1092 as amended.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 1092, a bill to designate the federal building located at 2030 Southwest 145th Avenue in Miramar, Florida, as the Benjamin P. Grogan and Jerry L. Dove Federal Bureau of Investigation Miami Field Office.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Curbelo, and the gentleman from Indiana, Mr. Carson, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Florida.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on H.R. 1092 as amended.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself as much time as I may consume. Mr. Speaker, H.R. 1092 as amended would designate the federal building located at 2030 Southwest 145th Avenue in Miramar, Florida, as the Benjamin P. Grogan and Jerry L. Dove Federal Building. FBI Special Agents Jerry Dove and Benjamin P. Grogan were killed in 1986 during a gun battle with robbery suspects. Special Agents Dove and Grogan have been a part of a surveillance effort in connection with a series of violent bank robberies in Miami, Florida. Special Agent Dove was born in January 1956 in Charleston, West Virginia. He earned degrees from Marshall University and West Virginia University and had been in law enforcement for 4 years prior to his death. Special Agent Grogan was born in Atlanta, Georgia in February 1933. He became an FBI Special Agent in 1961 and had been with the FBI for 19 years prior to his death. This legislation recognizes the ultimate sacrifice of these 2 FBI agents who were killed in the line of duty. I am pleased to be a co-sponsor of this legislation, and I want to thank the gentlewoman from Florida, Ms. Wilson, for her leadership on this bill. Mr. Speaker, earlier this afternoon, I spoke with George Pirro, Special Agent in charge of the FBI's Miami Field Office. And on behalf of the families of the fallen officers and of all of his colleagues, he conveyed his sincere appreciation to this House for considering this important legislation today. I urge my colleagues to support passage of this legislation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves, and the gentleman from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 1092 as amended.
Gentleman is recognized for debate.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of H.R. 1092 as amended, which designates the federal building located in Miramar, Florida, as the Benjamin P. Grogan and Jerry L. Dove Federal Bureau of Investigation Miami Field Office. I'd also like to thank my dear friend and pioneer and legend, the gentle lady from Florida, Madam Frederica Wilson, who really is a Floridian icon. But I want to recognize her for her dedicated work with law enforcement officers, including the 2 who died in the line of duty. On April the 11th, Mr. Speaker, 1989, FBI agents Jerry Dove and Benjamin Grogan were killed in southwest Miami, Florida. While these 2 FBI agents were investigating a spate of violent armed robberies, they observed a vehicle suspected to be connected to the robberies. When the agents attempted to stop the vehicle and the suspects refused, a high-speed chase ensued. A gun battle followed, and Special Agents Dove and Grogan were killed. 5 other agents were injured in the attack. Now, since this incident, Mr. Speaker, every April the 11th, the Miami FBI Field Office has held a special ceremony to honor Special Agents Dove and Grogan and other law enforcement officers who have been killed in the line of duty. As a former police officer, I have a deep appreciation of this honor being bestowed today. Naming this new facility after FBI Special Agents Jerry Dove and Benjamin P. Grogan is a fitting tribute to these two law enforcement officers who gave their lives in service and protection of the citizens of Miami, Florida. I urge my colleagues to join us in supporting H.R. 1092 as amendment. Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Florida.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to yield 2 minutes to my distinguished colleague from Florida, Mrs. Ileana Ross-Leighton.
The gentleman from Florida is recognized for 2 minutes.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank our brand new Florida colleague, the gentleman from Miami, Mr. Curbelo, for his leadership in bringing this important bill to the floor before us tonight. And I especially commend my good friend, the gentlelady from Miami, Dr. Wilson, for spearheading this effort to commemorate and thank our law enforcement officers, and especially to highlight the sacrifice that these two special agents made. As was pointed out by the previous speakers, Mr. Speaker, in 1986, Special Agent Benjamin P. Grogan and Jerry L. Dove were killed while serving bravely in the line of duty after they and other agents gave chase to two robbery suspects. A 5-minute gun battle, the bloodiest in FBI history, erupted when the suspect's vehicle was stopped in my sleepy neighborhood of Pinecrest, Florida, and both suspects began firing on law enforcement. In addition to the tragic loss of Special Agents Grogan and Dove, 5 other agents, including the agent who shot and killed the suspects, were injured, as approximately 145 shots were fired during this exchange. And even though this tragic scene like this one is very rare in South Florida today, our community understands the dangers that all law enforcement officers face in the course of their daily work to protect us civilians. The sacrifice of both special agents and their families is a testament to the ethos of service to our South Florida community. Although nothing will bring back these brave agents, I am proud to support Ms. Wilson's important bill to name the FBI's new South Florida field office for them. It is just one way, Mr. Speaker, in which we can honor their service and their sacrifice. Special Agents Dove and Grogan are role models for our new generation of law enforcement officers. Their bravery, their courage, their selfless dedication is seen every day in law enforcement officers in South Florida every day. I thank the gentleman from South Florida for the time, and I commend Dr. Wilson for this bill. Thank you, Mr. Curbelo. I yield back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I reserve.
Reserves.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 10 minutes to the gentlelady from Florida, the author of the bill.
The gentlewoman is recognized for 10 minutes.
Thank you. Oh, 1 minute. Okay. Got 'em. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A special thank you to Speaker Boehner for realizing the urgency of this bill. We just got this information, and I went to the Speaker, and he redlined the bill and brought it to the floor. So I'm proud to have my Florida colleagues here with me, a legend in her own time, Representative Ileana Ross-Leighton, and Mr. Curbelo, who is new and has really jumped into Congress and has been so helpful in all that we do. It's a pleasure to be the time being managed by Andre Carson, who himself is a police officer and who understands who we consider a role model in that field. So thank you so much for being here today for this important bill. I rise today to urge my colleagues to support H.R. 1092, which proposes to designate the federal building located at 2030 Southwest 145th Avenue in Miramar, Florida, in the heart of my district, as the Benjamin P. Grogan and Jerry L. Dove Federal Building. This new 475,000 square foot facility is a state-of-the-art office building and is developed in accordance with the 23rd Zero environmental footprint, according to the architects. This facility is a part of the GSA's Design Excellence Program, and in the words of the architect, it expresses the dignity, enterprise, and stability of the United States government while the landscape restores the native environment by reintroducing wetlands and vegetation typical of the Everglades. The facility is LEED certified and is designed to reduce the consumption of portable water by 95%. There are also solar panels on the roof of the annex and garage that will provide renewable electricity. The building will be high-tech and be able to support over 1,000 employees. There are a few major points that I want to mention about the building. First, the building is aesthetically gorgeous and far from what you would consider your typical government building. It sheds the model that the government buildings always place function over form. The building stands up from the neighboring buildings so much that most people don't know that it is the new FBI's field office. Also, the construction cost was approximately $8 million below the budgeted amount, and this was achieved through the operational efficiency of the contractor Hansel Phelps, the FBI, and GSA. The project provided a boost to the local economy by creating hundreds of jobs for the residents of my community. And the employees will be able to give back to the economy, which is so great, by spending money in the city of Miramar. Now, Mr. Speaker, we have an opportunity to create an even stronger personal connection with the local community. We're naming the building in honor of Special Agents Benjamin P. Grogan and Jerry L. Dove, members of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, who died valiantly on Friday, April 11, 1986, in what is still considered the bloodiest gun battle in the storied history of the FBI. Most men and women in law enforcement leave their homes for work knowing that there is a possibility that they may not return. But I don't know if that was on the minds of Agents Grogan and Dove as they left their homes on April 11, 1986. I do know that it was an unusually cool and breezy spring morning in South Florida. I do know that Miami in the 1980s was plagued by crime and graphic violence. This period has been chronicled in media reports and dramatically portrayed on the TV show Miami Vice and in movies like Scarface. And I know that Agents Grogan and Dove knew about this violence when they said goodbye to their families, picked up their badges and their guns, and left home on the morning of April 11, 1986. Yet, they still answered the charge to protect their community in the face of this danger. I know that Agent Grogan was a company man. I know that he had 25 years of dedicated service to the Bureau and was 1 year from retirement. His wife was also an employee of the Bureau. I know that Agent Dove had only 4 years of service in the Bureau after completing law school, but he was living his boyhood dream, according to his family. I have their photos displayed here so that you can see the men we are proposing to honor. I wanted to have their pictures so that you can see the bravery in their eyes. I know that their bravery was the motivation for their joining a team of fellow agents on the morning of April 11th, 1986, to tail a vehicle with 2 suspects on board that they thought was connected to a string of violent bank robberies. The agents attempted to hail the driver of the vehicle to pull over, and when that failed, the agents strategically cornered the vehicle, which came to a crashing halt by hitting a tree. A gun battle immediately ensued. There was a barrage of bullets. I can only imagine how the crackle from the guns cut through the normally peaceful morning of that South Dade neighborhood. Yet, our brave men of the Federal Bureau of Investigation returned fire. Their fire hit the suspects several times, but unfortunately, those weapons were not powerful enough to stop them. On the other hand, the weapons that were used by the suspects were so powerful that the agents were injured by misses that tore pieces of metal from their vehicles. However, those agents continued to battle on. Those agents knew that this could be that day for which they prayed to avoid as they said goodbye to their loved ones and left their homes, but they still battled on. I can only imagine the frustration of Special Agents Richard Manussi, Gordon McNeil, Edmundo Morales, Gilbert Orancho, John Hanlon, Ronald Risner, and Grogan and Dove, as they shot dozens of bullets into the suspect's direction, and the high-powered rifle continued to return fire, but they still battled on. In a desperate attempt to flee, the suspects tried to commandeer Grogan and Dove's vehicle. When they came around to the side of the vehicle, Grogan and Dove were on the ground in a defensive position they had taken to battle the suspects. It is reported that the suspects shot both agents with a high-powered rifle at close range. Shortly after, the suspects were themselves fatally shot by Agent Edmundo Morales. Agent Morales made a very impressive statement about his role in that tragic event. He said, "I knew and I felt that I was going to die, but I was going to do my best to make sure that the suspects didn't get away." When the dust cleared, 2 agents lay dead on that spring morning, and 5 were seriously injured. I know one other thing, that if for no other reason we are here in Congress, is to honor, commend, and decorate those Americans who live up to the ideals upon which this great country was founded. Mr. Speaker, I implore you and my colleagues in Congress to join me, the Transportation Committee, and my Florida colleagues and lift up Special Agents Benjamin Grogan and Special Agent Dove from that street in South Miami and place their names high where the world can know that we're proud of their sacrifice for their nation. It is only fitting that these names should be placed on the same mantle with the letters FBI, because Special Agents Grogan and Dove embody the motto for which the agency has become known: fidelity, bravery, and integrity. God bless the FBI, and God bless America. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman yields. Gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I continue to reserve. We have no additional speakers, so I'm prepared to close at any time.
The gentleman from Indiana is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back his time. from Florida is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my two colleagues from Florida for their moving and eloquent remarks, and I especially want to thank Ms. Wilson for raising awareness and taking this very special initiative to honor these men who gave the ultimate sacrifice for the safety and the security of our community. Mr. Speaker, it's often in this House that we take time to remember those who are defending our freedoms around the globe, our men and women in uniform, as we should, because many of them also pay the ultimate sacrifice. Less frequently do we take time to honor our heroes in law enforcement, those who live with us in our neighborhoods and who keep our neighborhoods and our homes safe. By doing this today, this House is honoring not just these men, not just their families, but all of our law enforcement officers throughout this country who every day fight to keep us safe and to guarantee the security of our neighborhoods and of our families. So once again, I thank my colleagues for this wonderful bipartisan effort to honor those who truly deserve to be honored by this House. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.